In a forest on the island of Oahu, a caterpillar the size of your little fingernail is walking across a spider's web. It's wearing a coat. The coat is made of dead bodies, weevil heads, fly wings, the molted skin of a spider, and it's not running from the spider. It's hunting inside the spider's home. This is not a horror story. This is real biology. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why evolution spent 6 million years building the strangest disguise on Earth. Here's what almost everyone believes. Caterpillars eat leaves. Moths and butterflies are gentle. They drift through gardens. They sip nectar. They are nature's quiet poetry. That belief is 99.9% correct. Out of roughly 200,000 species of butterflies and moths on Earth, only about 0.1% eat meat. A fraction of a fraction. But tucked inside that fraction, there is one species so strange that a scientist spent 17 years refusing to believe his own eyes. He would find a specimen. He would tell himself it was a mistake. Then he would find another and another. Until the only honest conclusion was this. On a sliver of forest in Hawaii, evolution has produced a caterpillar that lives inside spiderwebs, eats whatever the spider kills, and sews the leftovers into a suit of armor on its back. The scientific paper naming it finally came out in the journal Science in April 2025. The researchers called it the bone collector. Think about that name for a second. A creature so unusual that grown entomologists reached for a horror movie nickname. His name is Daniel Rubinoff. He is an entomologist at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. His job for the last 2 decades and been walking up the Waianae mountain range, looking for moths that exist nowhere else on Earth. In 2008, he was doing that job. He crouched near a rotting log. He shone a flashlight into a crack in the wood. And there, inside an old spider's web, he saw something small, crawling. He leaned closer, squinted. It was a caterpillar. But the caterpillar's body was covered in bits and pieces. Insect heads, wings, dry fragments. Rubinoff later told Scientific American what he thought in that moment. Quote, "I just couldn't believe it. The first couple of times you find that, you think it's got to be a one-off," end quote. So he cataloged it. He put it aside. He kept walking. But the forest kept showing him more. 1, then 2, then a handful, all doing the same impossible thing. 17 years. That's how long Daniel Rubinoff spent convincing himself that what he was seeing was actually happening. In his own words, years later, quote, "I've been looking at it for over a decade, and it still blows my mind," end quote. Let me show you what happens inside one of these webs, because this is where the story becomes unbelievable. Picture a tree, hollow in the Waianae Mountains. Deep shadow. The smell of wet wood. A spider has spun a web across the crack, and it's sitting there waiting. Insects fly in. They stick. The spider wraps them, bites them, drinks them dry. Standard operation, standard web, except somewhere on that same web, a caterpillar is living. Not trapped. Living. It built a small silk case, the size of a rice grain, and it walks on the spider's silk without getting caught. It walks toward the spider's kills. It chews through the silk wrapping the spider used. It eats the soft parts of the dead insect. Then, this is the part that took 17 years to verify. The caterpillar picks up the hard, pointed leftovers, heads, wings, hollow abdomens, the shed skin of the spider itself, and it glues them, one by one, onto its own silk case. Rubinoff has one quote I can't stop thinking about. He said the caterpillars are in a decorate or die situation. And then he added this, quote, "They live for fashion," end quote. He is joking, but he is not wrong. If the caterpillar's silk case looks too clean, too fresh, too much like a plump snack, the spider will notice. So the caterpillar has to look like garbage, like the same pile of chewed-up bodies that the spider has already eaten from, but disguise is not an Now, here is the twist that makes this creature even stranger. The scientists did a genetic analysis. They wanted to know how old this lineage was. How long ago did the bone collector split off from its leaf-eating gentle cousins? The answer came back. 6 million years? That's roughly twice as old as the island of Oahu itself, which is only about 3 million years old, which means this creature's ancestors couldn't have been born on Oahu. They came from somewhere else, from older Hawaiian islands, some of which are now underwater, submerged in the Pacific. Islands that no longer exist. So this little corpse-wearing caterpillar is older than the ground beneath its feet. Its family has been perfecting the art of decorate or die since before the Mediterranean Sea finished filling, since before Homo sapiens were a thought in nature's imagination. 6 million years of sewing other creatures into armor, of walking through spider webs in a suit of bones. Think about that for a second. Every evolutionary design you see in a nature documentary, the cheetah's sprint, the octopus's color shift, the peacock's tail, all of it is the same thing. A strategy that worked. A gamble that paid off in descendants. Evolution has no aesthetics. It does not care what we find beautiful. It asks one question, and one question only. Did it keep you alive long enough to reproduce? For this caterpillar, the answer for 6 million years has been yes, because it was willing to wear its enemies. Let me give you the numbers, because the numbers are part of why this story is haunting. 62. That is the total number of bone collectors Daniel Rubinoff and his team have documented. Not in a year, in 17 years of fieldwork. 3 caterpillars per year. That's the harvest. 15 square kilometers. That is the total range this species is known to occupy. A patch of rainforest smaller than most small towns, smaller than Central Park in New York. If you lose that forest, you lose the species. 6 families. That's the number of different insect lineages. Rubinoff has identified in the armor beetle abdomens, weevil heads, fly wings, earwig bodies, the molted exoskeletons of spiders, even sometimes the remains of other bone collectors. Yes, they will eat their own. In the same web, 2 caterpillars will turn each other into the next piece of camouflage. And one more number, 0.1%. Out of 200,000 species of butterflies and moths, fewer than 200 are carnivores. The bone collector is the only one we know of that wears its prey. It's a single thread in the tapestry of life, thin enough that one fire, one invasive ant, one change in climate could snap it forever. So why does this story matter? Why should it sit in your head longer than the time it takes to watch this video? Here is what I keep coming back to. We live in a moment where artificial intelligence is writing code. Biotech labs are bringing back species that went extinct thousands of years ago. We are, more than any generation before us, obsessed with designing life, with building minds, with stamping our imagination onto biology. And then, in a quiet corner of a Hawaiian forest, a caterpillar the size of a matchstick walks across a spider's web, wearing a coat made of corpses, a design we did not make, a design that took 6 million years, a design so strange that a professional entomologist spent 17 years convincing himself it was real. Daniel Rubinoff's quote again. Quote, "I've been looking at it for over a decade, and it still blows my mind." End quote. There is something humbling about that. Evolution without a designer, without a plan, produced a solution our minds can barely hold. Not through intelligence, through patience, through uncountable generations of caterpillars that did not decorate and were eaten, and one, somewhere, that did. We are very good at inventing. Nature is very good at waiting. And when you give nature enough time, it will produce things you would not have dared to write into a fantasy novel. The forest is still running the oldest research program in the world. Much of it we haven't even read yet. So here's a question to sit with. If it took 17 years of showing up in the same forest for a trained scientist to admit what he was seeing, how much of the living world are we still missing? Right now, in 15 square kilometers of Hawaiian forest, the bone collector is walking on a spider's web, wearing yesterday's victims, continuing a chain of behavior older than the island beneath it. It is not asking to be understood. It is just surviving. And we, the most curious species this planet has ever produced, are still, even in 2026, just beginning to notice the strangest things living right next to us. That, I think, is the real story. Not the armor, not the spider, not even the 6 million years. It's the reminder that the world is still writing books in a language we haven't finished learning. 6 million years of patient strangeness in 15 square kilometers of forest. The smallest corner of a planet still writing its own story. In 1968, an astronaut named Bill Anders was orbiting the moon in Apollo 8. He was supposed to be photographing the lunar surface for future landing sites. Then he turned his head, and he saw something nobody had ever seen before, a blue and white marble, rising above a dead gray horizon. Small, fragile, impossibly alive. He grabbed his camera. He took the picture, and something inside him, and inside every astronaut who has looked at our planet from above since, changed. They came back different, quieter. Some of them cried. Scientists have a name for it now. The overview effect.